In 2002, a man named Dennis Kozlowski threw a birthday party for his wife. It cost $2 million. Half of it was paid for by his company. His company was Tyco International, a publicly traded corporation whose shareholders had no idea their money was funding a Sardinian villa party, complete with an ice sculpture of Michelangelo's David urinating Stolichnaya vodka into a silver punch bowl. Kozlowski had also used company funds to buy a $6,000 shower curtain, a $15,000 dog umbrella stand, a $17,100 traveling toilet box. He had stolen more than $400 million from Tyco shareholders in total. He was caught. He was tried. He was convicted. He served 6 years. He is on this list because 6 years for $400 million, while his co-conspirator served even less, is not justice. It is the ceiling. Every other CEO on this list did not even reach it. Welcome back to Guilty and Free. 10 names, 10 frauds, 10 outcomes that tell you everything about how the legal system treats power. Some of these men were investigated and never charged. Some were charged and never convicted. Some were convicted and never imprisoned. And some were convicted, imprisoned briefly, and released to wealth that the fraud had already secured. In every case, the fraud paid. Here are the 10. Kenneth Lay was the founder and CEO of Enron Corporation. At its peak, the 7th largest company in the United States. Enron's collapse in 2001 was the largest corporate bankruptcy in American history at the time. 20,000 employees lost their jobs. Thousands lost their retirement savings, which had been tied to Enron stock. The stock went from $90 to pennies in under a year. The fraud was systematic. Enron used a network of off-balance sheet entities to hide billions in debt and inflate reported profits. Executives sold shares while publicly praising the stock to employees and investors who had no idea what the internal numbers actually showed. Lay knew. He was charged with 11 counts of securities fraud, wire fraud, and making false statements. In May 2006, he was convicted on all counts. He faced up to 45 years in prison. He died of a heart attack in July 2006, 10 weeks before sentencing. Under a legal doctrine called abatement, his conviction was vacated upon his death, as if the trial had never happened. Kenneth Lay died a convicted fraudster. Then, legally, he didn't. His estate was returned $44 million that had been frozen pending sentencing. Jeffrey Skilling was Kenneth Lay's successor as Enron CEO and the architect of the financial structures that made the fraud possible. He was convicted in 2006 on 19 counts of securities fraud, wire fraud, and insider trading. He was sentenced to 24 years in prison. He served 12. In 2013, Skilling reached a deal with the Department of Justice. In exchange for dropping further appeals, his sentence was reduced. He was released in 2019. He is currently working on a new energy venture. The 20,000 Enron employees whose retirement savings were destroyed have not launched new ventures. Martin Shkreli became the public face of pharmaceutical greed in 2015 when he raised the price of Daraprim, a drug used to treat a life-threatening parasitic infection, from $13.50 per pill to $750 per pill overnight. A 5,455% increase. He was not prosecuted for the price increase, which was legal. He was prosecuted for something else entirely: securities fraud related to 2 hedge funds he had run before touring. He was convicted in 2017 on 3 counts of securities fraud. He was sentenced to 7 years. He served 4, released early for good behavior. During his imprisonment, he continued to manage his pharmaceutical company, Phoenixus, by phone from prison, a practice that federal prosecutors sought unsuccessfully to stop. Upon release, his net worth was estimated at approximately $70 million. The patients who needed Daraprim at $750 a pill while he was in prison did not benefit from his early release. Elizabeth Holmes founded Theranos in 2003 with a claim that would revolutionize medicine. A device called the Edison that could run hundreds of diagnostic tests from a single drop of blood. The device did not work. Holmes knew this. Internal documents, testimony from former employees, and emails recovered in discovery all confirmed that Theranos was aware its technology was producing inaccurate results and continued to market it to patients and investors as validated and reliable. Theranos partnered with Walgreens and Safeway to deploy its technology in retail clinics. Patients received false test results. Some were told they had serious conditions they did not have. Some were not told about conditions they did. Holmes raised over $900 million from investors based on fraudulent claims. The company was valued at $9 billion at its peak. In January 2022, she was convicted on 4 counts of fraud. She was sentenced to 11 years and 3 months. She reported to prison in May 2023. She is currently serving her sentence, making her the exception on this list, not the rule. But her co-founder and former partner, Ramesh Balwani, who ran day-to-day operations, was also convicted and sentenced to nearly 13 years, a sentence both are appealing. The investors lost everything. The patients who received false results have received no compensation. Covered in depth in video 2 of this series. The facts, briefly. Richard Fuld ran Lehman Brothers for 14 years. He oversaw the use of a deceptive accounting practice called Repo 105 that temporarily removed $50 billion in liabilities from Lehman's balance sheet before each quarterly report, making the bank appear healthier than it was. The bank collapsed in September 2008. $613 billion in debt, the largest bankruptcy in U.S. history. A bankruptcy examiner's report found sufficient evidence to support claims of securities fraud against Lehman executives. The Department of Justice investigated. No charges were filed. Richard Fuld's compensation in the years leading to the collapse, approximately $500 million. He is currently a licensed securities dealer. He operates a small investment advisory firm in New York. No charges, no trial, no prison. Still licensed. Adam Neumann co-founded WeWork in 2010 and built it into one of the most hyped companies in the world, valued at $47 billion at its peak in early 2019. The valuation was built almost entirely on narrative. WeWork rented office space and subleased it at a premium, while describing itself not as a real estate company, but as a technology company, a framing that attracted tech-scale valuations for a business with tech-scale losses. Neumann's behavior as CEO was extensively documented. He sold hundreds of millions in personal shares, while the company burned cash, trademarked the word "we," and sold it to WeWork for $5.9 million before being asked to return it. Leased buildings he personally owned to WeWork, and ran the company in ways that repeatedly benefited himself at shareholder expense. The planned IPO in 2019 collapsed after the prospectus revealed the full scale of the losses and the governance failures. Neumann was removed as CEO. His exit package, $1.7 billion. He was not charged. He is currently running a new real estate startup called Flow, which has received $350 million in venture capital funding. WeWork filed for bankruptcy in November 2023. John Rigas founded Adelphia Communications and built it into the 6th largest cable television company in the United States. He and his sons used Adelphia as a personal bank account. They borrowed $3.1 billion from the company, off the books, to fund personal investments, purchase shares, and finance a private golf course. When the fraud was discovered in 2002, Adelphia collapsed. John Rigas was convicted of bank fraud, securities fraud, and conspiracy in 2004. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison. He served less than 2, released in 2016 on compassionate grounds due to terminal cancer. His son Timothy, convicted alongside him, was sentenced to 20 years and served 14 before being released in 2019. The $3.1 billion was never fully recovered. John Rigas died in 2019 at home. Alan Stanford ran one of the largest Ponzi schemes in history, second only to Bernie Madoff in scale. He sold approximately $7 billion in fraudulent certificates of deposit through his Antigua-based bank, Stanford International Bank, promising investors guaranteed returns that were fictitious. The money was used to fund Stanford's personal lifestyle: private jets, yachts, cricket sponsorships, and a mansion in Antigua. He was convicted in 2012 on 13 counts of fraud, conspiracy, and obstruction. He was sentenced to 110 years in prison. He is currently incarcerated. This makes Stanford the harshest sentence on this list. The reason is instructive. Stanford, unlike most of the CEOs here, had no systemic importance. No regulator worried that prosecuting him might destabilize a market. He had no political relationships that created institutional reluctance. He was simply a fraudster without protection. The $7 billion his investors lost has been partially recovered. Approximately $500 million returned to date. Travis Kalanick co-founded Uber and built it into a global transportation company valued at over $70 billion. He was not charged with fraud. He is on this list for something more structural: the systematic and documented use of a program called Greyball, software designed to detect when regulatory officials were attempting to use the Uber app and to show them a fake version of the app with phantom cars, preventing them from successfully booking rides and gathering evidence of regulatory violations. This was not an accident. It was a deliberate tool, built by engineers, approved by management, used in cities across America, Europe, and Asia. The Department of Justice investigated Greyball. No charges were filed against Kalanick personally. He was removed as CEO in 2017, following a string of governance and culture scandals. His stake in Uber at the time of the IPO was worth approximately $5.3 billion. He is currently running a new company called Cloud Kitchens, which has raised over $400 million. The regulators whose investigations were obstructed by Greyball have not been compensated for the investigative resources wasted. The 10th entry on this list is not a single name. It is every senior executive of every major financial institution that contributed to the 2008 financial crisis and was not charged. We have covered Richard Fuld, Stan O'Neill, Jimmy Kane, Chuck Prince, Lloyd Blankfein, and Angelo Mazzolo in depth in video 2. The combined compensation of the top executives at the 6 largest banks in the 5 years before the 2008 collapse exceeded $2.5 billion. The combined number of those executives who served prison time for conduct related to the crisis. 1. Kareem Sarageldin, a Credit Suisse trader, served 2.5 years for mismarking bond positions. He was not a CEO. He was not even close to the top. The men who designed the systems, approved the products, collected the bonuses, and walked away when the system collapsed. Every single one of them is free. 10 names, or rather, 9 names and an entire industry. The pattern across all of them is not complicated. When a CEO commits fraud that is complex enough, the investigation becomes expensive and uncertain. Prosecutors weigh the probability of conviction against the cost of trial. Regulators weigh enforcement against systemic risk. Boards weigh accountability against reputational disruption. And at every decision point, the incentive is to settle, to defer, to reduce, to release early. The result is a system in which the scale of the fraud is, in practice, a form of protection. The bigger the fraud, the safer the fraudster. That is not a failure of the system. That is the system. This is guilty and free. 10 CEOs, billions stolen, millions of victims. One serving a full sentence. Subscribe. New video every week. If you think the pattern stops at the CEO level, the next video shows you how deep it goes. They got away with it.